Hello, you're watching Eye on Africa on France 24. I'm Nadia Massi. Here are the top stories on the continent this Wednesday. Unrest in Kenya as protesters clash with police over the cost of living crisis. Hundreds arrested, but the demonstrations smaller than in previous weeks. Facing an international arrest warrant, Vladimir Putin will not go to South Africa. Cyril Ramaphosa's government announcing the news, calling it a mutual decision. And in his first apparent public comment since the failed mutiny in Russia, the head of the Wagner mercenary group tells his men to prepare for new operations in Africa. But first, security forces and protesters clashed in Kenya this Wednesday amid anger at the high cost of living. Several people were shot by police, who also used tear gas to quell the protests. Hundreds were arrested. The unrest follows similar anti-government protests last week, in which 14 people died. Human rights groups have strongly criticised what they describe as excessive force by police. In some areas this Wednesday, protesters barricaded roads and hurled stones at the security forces. Our Nairobi correspondent Bastien Renouy has been reporting from one of those areas this Wednesday.
This Wednesday morning, Nairobi was a really quiet city. Most of the roads were empty and many shops remained closed, mostly in the informal settlements such as Mathare, where I am at the moment. Here, groups of youth progressively gathered during the day and engaged the police. This mainly occurred in the slums around Nairobi, but most of the city remained quiet. And if there was no huge demonstration and huge gathering, it doesn't mean that this day of mobilization was a failure for the opposition. Listen to these opposition supporters.
All the businesses are shut down, and that one is causing a great impact to the government. Us, this quietness you can see here is good to us as common mwananchi. It is so good to us. We are not going to lose our lives today, and I'm sure of that. But what is good is that the government is losing. We are not the losers. Today, this peace means we are going to gain.
We are expressing it in a manner which is peaceful. No looting, no violent confrontation, no mugging of people. That's why we are here, but we are part and parcel of that mandamano, so that the cost of living can come down.
Despite the opposition calls for peaceful demonstrations, youth and the police have been fighting here in Mathare all day long, and it's been the case in several slums and in several cities across Kenya. Here in Mathare, youth were throwing rocks and glass bottles to the police, and the police shot gas canisters, but also rubber bullets, and from time to time live ammunition to these people. At least 3 persons have been injured here in Mathare. I've seen a man with a broken leg and a very deep cut to the leg. I've seen a kid with a head injury. And according to Kenyan newspapers, several people have been injured and killed by live ammunition in several parts of Kenya, but the police is yet to confirm this information. So what will happen next? Well, the opposition is calling for 2 more days of demonstrations on Thursday and Friday this week.
Bastien Renouy reporting for us there in Nairobi. Now, after weeks of speculation, it's been confirmed this Wednesday that Vladimir Putin will not attend an international summit in Johannesburg next month. His foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, will travel in his place. The South African government said the decision was reached with the mutual agreement of Moscow. Putin is the target of an arrest warrant by the International Criminal Court, and as an ICC signatory, South Africa would have been expected to act on it should he have entered the country. Now, it's all been a thorny diplomatic issue for the South African government, as our correspondent Robin Smith now explains.
That Putin will not be attending in person, but will take the talks online. The announcement follows months of delicate consultations and diplomatic tension. South Africa claims to take a neutral stance on the war in Ukraine, but the country has been accused of being a Russian ally. Its unwillingness to publicly agree to arrest Putin has not helped matters at all. An affidavit by President Ramaphosa was made public this week. In it, he says arresting Putin would amount to a declaration of war. The Kremlin has denied making any threats of war against South Africa, but has said that arresting Putin would be seen as an attack on the Russian leader. The decision for Vladimir Putin not to visit South Africa now takes some of the international pressure off South Africa as it prepares to host the BRICS summit from the 22nd of August.
Well, meanwhile, a video has been released apparently showing the head of the Russian mercenary group Wagner for the first time since his men launched a mutiny in Russia last month. The footage was posted on Wagner's Telegram channel, although France 24 cannot verify its date or location. In it, Yevgeny Prigozhin tells his fighters they will spend time training in Belarus before deploying on the African continent. The group, of course, already has established operations in a number of African countries, including Mali and Sudan. Here's a little then of what Prigozhin had to say.
We continue training and improving our skills. We are off to a new path, to Africa. And we will probably return to the special military operation when we are sure that we won't be forced to put ourselves and our experience to shame.
In other news, the Supreme Court in Ghana has dismissed a legal challenge to an anti-LGBT bill, meaning it is now more likely to become law. The controversial legislation would criminalise same-sex relations, being transgender, and advocating for LGBT rights. A researcher filed the lawsuit against the bill, saying it would financially impact Ghana. That argument was rejected by the Supreme Court this Wednesday, paving the way for the legislation to be signed into law. Now, Morocco's top court has rejected the final appeals of two journalists imprisoned on sexual assault charges. Omar Radi and Suleiman Rassouni were handed down 6 and 5 year sentences, respectively. Human Rights Watch has accused Morocco of using criminal trials, especially for sexual offences, as techniques of repression to silence journalists and critics of the government. Now, around the world, droughts are becoming more frequent as the climate emergency deepens. And our next report takes us to northern Senegal, where many are struggling with water scarcity. There, a small local initiative is trying to help communities, and it is having some success, as Caroline Lamboulay now reports.
Collecting water, a daily chore often shouldered by women. Here in northern Senegal, it's sometimes necessary to walk at least 7 or 8 kilometers to find a source. Mamadou Diakate, who has a background in constructing schools, has been trying to develop homegrown solutions without relying on foreign donors.
We raise funds exclusively online. We launch campaigns from our platforms and our phone numbers. We explain the problem to the community. We tell them that we want to build this school, for example, or that we want to build a well, and that we need however much money to do it. Every few days, we try to show the progress that's been made. We try to show donors, look, we started with this small hole, now it's 2 meters deep, 3 meters deep, 5 meters, 10 meters.
More than 50 wells have been built since 2020. One of them was here in a small village called Uru Amadi Baga. Already, it's been a game changer.
With the small well we had before, people could only get drinking water. But we needed another water source to grow food. With the old one, we couldn't water crops, or else we wouldn't have had enough drinking water. But now we can grow things, feed ourselves, and even sell the vegetables we don't eat.
As global warming intensifies, droughts are becoming more frequent everywhere, a phenomenon which will likely only become worse in the future.
Now, opals are among the world's most popular gemstones. They've been mined for thousands of years, but in 2008, significant deposits of opals were discovered in Ethiopia. The trade has brought in millions of dollars to the country, but the government is now hoping with the right infrastructure, the stones could generate even more revenue in the years to come.
Deep in the steep valleys of Wello, young men are hard at work on the mountainside searching for opal, with only pickaxes as equipment.
It's very dangerous. When there are collapses, it can kill a lot of miners. because they have no protection. Sometimes when the stones fall, they get stuck in the tunnel. When you do this job, you risk your life.
The miners sell their stones through a cooperative, but they could do better. Their simple methods yield only small opals of average quality because mixed with rock. Once the stone has been polished and its colors revealed, a 5-gram gem sells for €175.
There are several types of opal in Ethiopia. Crystal opal, black opal, red opal, fire opal. The more colourful they are, the more precious they are. After polishing, it's ready to be sold and is priced according to colour, shape and size.
Recognizing the quality of a stone to sell it at the right price is a rare skill in Ethiopia. So at the Ministry of Mines, the World Gem Foundation is launching a training program to help Ethiopians make the most of their mineral wealth.
These resources are fine, and we should know how to manage them, and we should be financially or economically benefiting from this. Now we're educating people, and I'm sure after 6 months, this is going to change the dynamic of this sector.
The aim of the program, to train 1,000 gemologists over 10 years in order to get a bigger share of the global market for precious stones. A market with a potential value of €1 billion compared with 10 million today.
And that's a wrap for Eye on Africa this Wednesday. Thank you for watching and do stay with us. Much more still to come here on France 24.
On France 24, watch exclusive interviews with the world's most influential personalities.
We need to act together because we're protecting our freedom.
Encounters with key political leaders.
L'inquiétude, elle est extrême.
Leading figures from the worlds of culture, sport and science.
La science, la recherche, la découverte, le progrès, c'est important, c'est pas des mots qui sont vides.
Whatever you think is right, you can do.
Watch The Interview, a meeting of ideas on France 24 and France24.com.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.